Welcome to another episode of IDology, the Industrial Design Podcast. Ahead of you is a discussion of how the future of manufacturing might change through decentralizing it and bringing it local. My guest is Mitch Debora, the co-founder and CEO of Mosaic. Mosaic's products are unique. They caught our eye at the 2023 Formnext Expo, and we asked them if they would hop on the podcast and talk about their products a little bit. And so they did. So without further ado, here's Mitch Debora from Mosaic. Mitch, hello, and thank you for joining this call.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, we're connecting Poland and Canada, and we'll be talking about Mosaic today. Tell me, Mitch, tell me basically what is it that your company does and what's your role in the company for starters, so that everyone that's listening to us will have the wide idea.
Absolutely. So Mosaic, we're a company that's focused on really supercharging manufacturing efficiency. And the way we're doing that is by unlocking mass 3D printing as part of supply chains. So think about the factory of the future and 3D printers being a part of producing products and doing that locally and sustainably, which we think is a much better way to produce moving forward. The company Mosaic, we were founded about 10 years ago now. I'm one of the original co-founders, and today I'm the CEO of the company.
Okay, that sounds like a huge mission to bring manufacturing locally. Was that something that you were aiming for from the very beginning? Was that like the founding idea of the company?
It actually wasn't the founding idea. I think Mosaic's story is one of those classic startup stories where we were aiming close to the right direction in solving a problem for customers and building out technology and intellectual property. And over time, based on what we learned from the market, we were able to expand and steer. So where we actually got started was focusing on bringing multicolor and multi-material to low-cost 3D printers. Because back in the day, it was very, very common for a printer to only use a single filament, meaning that you could only print one color or one material. And any of the solutions to do more than that were very slow, expensive, inefficient. So we found a way to print with, like 8 or 10 or more filaments from a single nozzle extruder printer. And by doing so, we're able to ship thousands of products around the world and really get our bearings into this market.
Okay, you've mentioned that through, I assume, customer feedback and getting to know your clients better, at some point you decided to pivot your product a bit, right? So what was the main feedback that made you think that maybe we should change the direction we're heading a bit, or maybe narrow it down, make it more precise?
Yeah, exactly. There was a couple factors. And so, we were selling a product called Palette, which was an accessory to a 3D printer that allowed the printer to be upgraded to print in color and multi-material. And so inherently, our market was limited to the total number of printers in the world. We were going to be able to help a subset of that. And again, I think built a really nice business off of that. But without knowing it, we were putting a limit on ourselves to sort of limit the upper edge to the total number of printers in the world. What was really interesting was, 6-7 years ago, we started noticing customers were buying our product for a different purpose than what it was originally intended. They weren't using it to have 8 different colors of filament necessarily loaded into the printer. They were sometimes loading all the same filament, and when one ran out, they would use the technology to switch to the next. And we call that automated multi-material changeover. And that showed us that our technology can easily be applied to scaling of 3D printing. And what's really interesting there is the moment you're using 3D printing in manufacturing, you're now servicing a $14 trillion market rather than a $13 billion 3D printing space. So much bigger opportunity, much more room for impact. And for us, it became clear that expansion was how we could have a bigger impact on the world.
Yeah, that does sound like a classic startup story, right?
Yeah.
You go to the market with a product. Well, maybe not a classic one, because most of them aren't as successful as yours, basically, because you've managed to build a nice business, like you said, from your initial idea. That's a success in itself. But then you've noticed that people were using your products in different ways than you planned them to use. For that does sound like a classic story. But yeah, that's great. How did that influence, or did it even influence the design of your products or the range of your products?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, first of all, we're really lucky. Some companies will pivot and they'll move from here to over, a completely different direction.
Yeah.
Whereas for us, we debate whether it was really even a pivot or just an expansion because, we saw that people were leveraging that core functionality and intellectual property around multi-material just for a different end purpose of automation. So uh, that palette product ended up being the core engine of our array, which is our flagship product today. And just to give you a very brief overview, array, think about it like a system that can be rolled into a factory. Inside of it is many 3D printers, as well as the robotic operating system. So instead of conventional printer farms, we'll have people going around changing material, changing build plate, loading, stopping. The array system is fully run by a robotic system, meaning that it'll run for at least 3 days straight without any manual intervention. And at the core of that is a 3D printer we built called Element, and inside of that is a technology called Palette. So it's kind of like a nested system based on
Like
that
a three
initial
in one.
technology. Yeah, exactly. And certainly that influenced the product direction to be able to build on a foundation that we had, and then getting into the factories of our customers and understanding their problems. What seems to be the problem versus back to first principles. What is the core of the pain point? And we're so fortunate, back then to have been able to have access to the factories of Fortune 500s who are really pushing the boundaries of manufacturing, and that absolutely influenced what we built. We've always believed that if you go out and build something based off what you think customers might want, there's a really big there's a lot of room for you to be wrong, for there to be a big delta. But if you can,
Yeah.
right? But if you can build real customer use and feedback and into the initial problem statement and throughout the process, you can minimize that delta and be in a great spot. And I think the team at Mosaic did a great job throughout the process of doing that.
Yeah, that sounds so. Tell me more about the team. Did you guys do all the design work and the business strategy yourself? Do you have investors? How big is your company?
Yeah, so the company's grown pretty significantly throughout the past several years. I think at the beginning we were about 15 people supporting the entire pallet business and moving into the array business. But we've 3 to 4x to the company size. We're about 60 individuals now, all under one roof here in our Toronto, Canada headquarters. We have brought on some external investment over the past while, but largely we've been able to grow the business sustainably by bootstrapping and growing based on our own revenues, and with some non-dilutive support from the government here in Canada, who support the mission of bringing 3D printing into the factory environment. Our team is largely technical, a lot of software, hardware engineers, but also we do all of the commercialization. So sales, marketing team, customer support, account management, all of us under one roof, one really tight knit team that's able to work collaboratively to achieve our goals. I think we punch well above our weight. Many of our advisors who look at the company, they say, they look at what we're doing, they assume it would be hundreds of people, but while we are growing,
Okay.
we certainly do a lot with the team we have. One thing that we don't do ourselves is manufacturing. Ironically, because our name is Mosaic
Okay.
Manufacturing, that's more about our vision than a core competency of ours is not to be the ones making our own products. We work with professional contract manufacturers who are experts at that. And what that means is that we can scale. So as we go from deploying, tens to hundreds to thousands of our printing systems, it becomes much more trivialized, and we can send a PO and have it scale. That's a really critical thing. And so our team is all development and support of our mission, not building products.
Yeah, that sounds amazing and ironic in itself, right? You're bringing manufacturing locally, yet you don't manufacture your own product. But that's the story for most companies these days, right?
It is, but let me make this one step more complicated. So we actually do. We are part of the. This is a really good example because I think a lot of people when they think about 3D printing and manufacturing, they think, okay, so a 3D printer is going to make a product, like it's going to make an
Hmm.
iPhone or a pair of eyeglasses. But the way I actually like to think about it is in any manufacturing system, there's the supply chain all the way from the printed circuit boards, the plastics, the sheet metal, to the
Hmm.
packaging. All those need their own supply chains that feed together to an end assembly site. And one of the things today is that usually it's favorable to go overseas where labor is inexpensive,
Hmm.
where there's great ecosystems of supply chains to make a product. Um, to onshore and do it in Europe or the US or Canada,
Hmm.
it's not just about the assembly, it's about building those supply chains. And
Yeah.
one of the critical links that's missing is the production of plastic parts. And that's one of the problems that we solve with our array. So when our products are assembled here in Canada, actually, we are the supply chain to our own product in that we will print out almost all of the plastics that can be printed,
Okay.
right? We will send those to our factory, who will then build them into the product and then ship it. So we
Wow,
are a
that
manufacturer.
seriously
So yeah,
sounds like the chicken or the egg dilemma.
yes, absolutely. But I can't even begin to tell you how amazing it is to sort of use our own product for the purpose it's built. The
Yeah.
alternative would, of course, have been injection molding or CNC
Yeah.
machining. We calculated that we saved over $500,000 by not injection molding these parts, on top of the fact that our engineering team was able to rapidly iterate, skip a cycle of of design for manufacturing, going from CAD to a part that could be injection molded. And to this day, we're able to make changes more rapidly. So a lot of the benefits and the reasons that our customers are buying Array for their production systems and needs, we're getting the same benefits in our own ecosystem and manufacturing system, which is it's really cool to see, and it aligns us really nicely with our customers.
It's amazing to hear that you had the chance when working with the Fortune 500 companies, like you said, who were pushing the boundaries of 3D printing to have the, um, I wouldn't say playground, but a very good ground for experiments and for researching your product and developing it. And now being your own client in a way, working with your product, that's another great ground to test and experience the product and how it's used by your clients yourselves. Um, Tell me more about uh, pivoting towards the array. Was that a big uh, challenge for your design team, or was it something that was uh, like this in a blink of an eye, a quick fix for sort of? Well, it's never like that, but you know what I mean.
No, I think it was big, and I think that there's a lot of recency bias that we have as consumers, as designers. We look in the world and we see the most successful products, and they seem so obvious at the time. It seems like once they're successful, and we're on our way to really scaling and making Array successful in the market. But even today, with product in the market, with happy customers, you got to imagine many years ago, 5 years ago, when we were having these conversations about the strategic direction of the company and whether or not, can we pull this off? Do we have the resources? How much risk is there? All of
Yeah.
what's the opportunity? What are the threats? All those components of the assessment. It seemed like a crazy idea, an exciting one, and that's what motivates you to go after it. But you got to understand, this was, we're going from a company that was making a component of a system to not only building an entire printing system, but now taking it to a state of the art that's never been achieved before, with a fully automated integrated system. There's so much to do, but in some ways,
Mhm.
it's that a bit of a blind naivety jumping into it, knowing that it's going to be challenging, but that it'll be worth it if you can get there. I'm so proud that we did get here, and we're at this point now. But it was a huge pivot, and yeah, there's just a lot more work to do. But I think for the team, the only thing I'll say is that we were very lucky to have had the foundations of building that first product, because even though the array ecosystem is broader, more complicated, et cetera, we knew as a team how to write firmware, how to create integrated software, create good user experiences, to create compelling hardware, to do manufacturing, certification,
Mm,
logistics. We got
yeah.
to, and we didn't just build one generation of Palette. We built Palette, Palette Plus, Palette 2, Palette 2S, Palette 3, Palette 3 Pro. There's multiple generations that we got to get good at this kind of thing. So I think we got to that point where we were in a position to then build this ecosystem, and that gave us a really good competitive advantage versus if we were all coming at this from scratch.
Yeah. Well, it's clear to me that you guys are innovators and you have the true spirit of entrepreneurship, because it seems like you were in the perfect position to pivot in this specific direction. You had all the puzzles sort of on your desk. You just needed to put them together, and like you said, you had enough experience and knowledge to do just that. Um, I haven't had the chance to see your products in person. My colleagues from my company did have the chance, and basically that's why we asked you if you would like to join the podcast, because not only is the technology impressive, but even just looking at the machines, they look really nice. They and I was going to ask about how how is that even important for you as a business when having this sort of technology and this sort of unique solution for businesses? Um, I'm asking about that because we've had a lot of conversations with different manufacturers, and there are very different opinions on designing the look and feel sort of the product, the brand, if and how important that is for a product, for sales. How did that story go through?
Yeah, I've had this conversation many times, and we have been really fortunate to receive a lot of feedback like yours that I appreciate. That our products are nice looking and sort of exciting to look at. And for us, I think we've always put energy into um, making sure that there's a look and feel that's exciting, all the way from a great unboxing experience to a great user experience. And for Array, it was no different, despite being an industrial product. The way that we see it, our first 1,000 Array customers are ultimately, our biggest. They're going to be our biggest champions. They're the ones who are helping Array be adopted on the factory floor and pushing the
Yeah,
boundaries of digital manufacturing.
ambassadors.
Exactly. And something we heard in customer interviews early on is they want something that's exciting, that they want to show off. They
Okay.
think they think that futuristic technology should look futuristic, and so
Mm,
we did want to integrate elements of industrial systems like an all metal enclosure, proper enclosures like doors for safety and all that. But for a great example is the typical stack light that you see on top of a piece of
yeah,
equipment, the red, blue, green.
yeah,
We
yeah.
thought that was useful, but we sort of took a twist on it to have a nice curved light in the corner, and that became part of the design language of our element printer and our array product. And the balance is that these are expensive things to do, right? It's always going to be
Yeah.
cheaper to have a rectangular product that's kind of made of cheap materials. But
Sure.
putting a little bit of energy into finding clever ways to manufacture effectively, but having this consistent design language has gone a long way. And a lot of the feedback we get from our customers is they're very proud to have Array in their factory to show it off on tours. And I think it was a good investment that we made.
Wow, that's very interesting to hear. I mean, it sounds like an obvious thing to say that it does influence the look and the feel, apart from the functionality, that they do influence business in a positive way. But I found that many people, like you said before, say that it's an expensive endeavor, and some it's just better for a machine to be 100% functional to do its job and just look whatever it's locked somewhere in a manufacturing facility. It's not on display at an expensive shopping street or whatever. But you've mentioned that you've even worked on unboxing experience. That's something interesting to hear. Was it like also because your clients told you that they pay attention to how your products look, or was it something that you've planned from the very beginning for it to be even the unboxing of the product to be exciting?
The unboxing, I wouldn't say is something we were told, but having been on both sides of this, I can certainly tell you that on the design side, when you're making decisions and you have cost targets to hit, it's very easy to cut corners, right? It's very easy to say, the box is going to maybe be thrown out right away. Let's just go with something incredibly cheap and make sure it's easily recyclable. But you also, and one of my co-founders, Derek, who's really gifted when it comes to product design and user experience thinking, has always been there to kind of influence making sure that we're thinking holistically about, somebody's entering an experience and they might have spent, $800 on a palette. And how do we make sure that there's consistency? So if they're going to have a beautiful product and a beautiful experience, that it starts off with something that they can unbox. And so actually a really cool example, one of our early products, we decided to make the investment in the packaging being really robust, but instead of it being consumable, we actually turned it into a functional part of the product where it would convert into a storage box for filament for use in the product. So that way we were able to kind of double down on it and got a lot of positive feedback. So yeah, I think it's a balance. There's things customers will tell you, like, they like the Array being a really attractive machine that feels like it's future-proof and can be a staple of their factory tour to sell their bosses on getting more and all that. They won't necessarily tell you that the unboxing experience is critical, but I think that's important for us to control in thinking about having consistency and finding that balance, of course. So, for example, in the Array, it doesn't come in a a graphic box or anything like that, but it does come in a really rich wooden crate that fits through a standard door. And that was something that we had to understand when it comes to who our customer is, that they've got a forklift probably, but they don't have a door that is big enough to bring the product in whole. And so making sure that it can be configured, assembled, and in a quick amount of time, reliably, and fit through a standard door means that the product can be used in hospitals, schools, small businesses, and there's so many considerations to all of these things beyond just the look.
Well, I think the devil's in the details, that's the whole brand experience sort of. So whenever your client has this positive experience, even if you're with your packaging, they sort of get a more positive feel on how they spend their money, right?
Yeah.
Were those arguments for your sales department? Did your sales department, in any way influence those changes, or simply turn them into sales?
I think in some cases, but to be honest, for us, I think things grow in phases, and the sales function is one that really grew in the last 12 months. One of the harsh realities that you learn about product development is that there's that initial development phase, and then you get to manufacturing and you make the product. And at that point, implementing changes can sometimes take half a year or a year. So a lot of that later stage feedback that we are getting from the sales team, that helps inform the improvements and iterations that we make on the products. But I think that we're actually really in that process right now of really listening and learning and making sure we continue to improve.
Okay, Mitch, tell me what are the next steps for Array and for Mosaic in general? How does the future look for you guys?
Yeah, I'm really excited about the future. I think that there's a lot going on in the world of manufacturing right now as it transitions to digital. And the way that we think about the future is we imagine a future where the things that we need are made sustainably around the corner. This localized ecosystem of manufacturing.
Okay.
We're hearing businesses talk about that they're working to onshore. And for that to happen, we need robust supply chains to feed into those manufacturing ecosystems. Mosaic's part in that is, again, supercharging the manufacturing efficiency of plastic part production by unlocking mass 3D printing as part of that supply chain. So for us, that's making Array as cost-effective as possible, as scalable as possible, getting thousands of them into the world to help leading manufacturers make their supply chains more competitive. And we think that we can have a significant part in that transition to localized manufacturing by again, serving in that supply chain the way we are today with our own products and the way we're helping other manufacturers along the way.
That sounds amazing. I mean, it's for me, hearing about the success of your company is I'm not sure what would be the best way to put it, but just feeling the energy that you have and the excitement that you have when talking about your company and your product. It's clear to me that the product that you are selling and that you are manufacturing is on that path to revolutionize manufacturing and bring it locally. It's really, I can feel the quality of your product in the excitement that you share when you talk about it. It's amazing.
I appreciate that.
Mitch, thank you very much. Thank you for the conversation. It's been nice having you on the podcast, and hopefully, maybe at another trade fair, we'll get a chance to meet in person, and maybe we'll be able to continue this conversation.
Thank you for having me. It's always exciting to talk about the future and to look back at some of the decisions that were made getting here. So really appreciate you having me. And yeah, I'll look forward to meeting you and the team soon.
Thank you.